Welcome back to Fantasy Football by Committee, powered by Flurry Sports. It can be tough to win a fantasy league on your own, but at FFBC, we will work together to bring home the hardware. Hosted by Zach Bruner and the rest of the Flurry Sports crew, we will give top-level analysis, answer your questions, and, well, go off on other tangents.
That was after I tried to get ChatGPT to admit that 9/11 was an inside job, but it stood firm. It gave quite a few solid points that it was true.
Welcome to Fantasy Football by Committee. The show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Well, let's just jump into now 7 fantasy football Bylow candidates heading into week 5. That's important. They may be Bylow candidates after this week, but you know, some of these depend on the matchup ahead of them for this week, next week, yada, yada. So heading into the week 5 games, one of my favorite Bylow candidates is Rhamondre Stevenson. Does not matter your league type. I do like Rhamondre Stevenson. Obviously, the New England Patriots have sucked through the first month of the season. I think their offense has had some moments where they have been all right. Offensive line is still an issue. Mac Jones, inconsistent. He's had some good moments, some bad moments, and everything like that. But this past week, people were nervous. Rhamondre Stevenson owners were nervous because we all got that notification on our phone that Ezekiel Elliott is going to see starter snaps today, per sources. Well, those starter snaps meant Zeke got 40% of the snaps. Rhamondre still got 54% of the snaps. And I say that to say, in a week where it's supposed to be heavy Zeke, it was still heavy Rhamondre. Like his role is safe. He's good. He has played the 8th most snaps per game among all running backs. Pretty good. He averages 19 looks per game, and looks is what I call carries plus targets. So 19 per game, very high usage. He also has 7 red zone carries to Zeke's 1. So, you know, the talk was Ezekiel Elliott was going to be brought in to be the short yardage, the goal line guy. The data through 1 month does not suggest that. So high usage, great role, low production so far. He has 1 touchdown, I believe, so far this season. So brighter days ahead for Rhamondre Stevenson. If everything stays the same, essentially, production is going to pick up and he's going to be better. So, yeah, I like Rhamondre Stevenson as a buy low candidate. He is probably a high-end RB2 with upside, and I think you can get him for RB3 value right now, or low-end RB2. I think Rhamondre Stevenson owners are they're not happy. They're pretty upset, right? They had to draft him early. They're pretty upset. Another running back I am willing to buy low on right now is Aaron Jones. Obviously, follow the Packers very closely, Packers analyst, and we all believe Aaron Jones is one of the best running backs in the NFL. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. One of the most talented running backs for sure. He is the most talented offensive player for the Packers for sure. Not a question. His issue so far this year has been mostly his hamstring injury. Week 1, he finished as the RB1, but he left early with a hamstring injury. Missed week 2, missed week 3. Week 4, he was very much limited. I think most people would say he was limited because of his hamstring. He was mostly limited because the Packers didn't even try to establish the run. They didn't even attempt it. Just coaching malpractice on Matt LaFleur's part. We also know that the Packers often put A.J. Dillon in the red zone. Again, just coaching malpractice. Dillon sucks. Aaron Jones is smaller, but he's a better runner, harder runner, way more talented player. Eventually, water will find its level. Everything will regress to the mean. Aaron Jones is going to see more work. He's going to see a lot of work this week, I imagine. Playing on Monday Night Football against the Raiders. The Packers need to establish the run this week. They don't want Max Crosby to just tee off on the Packers' inexperienced second-year tackles, Zach Tom and Rasheed Walker. There's no reason for the Packers to just sit back there and let them tee off. So they're going to run the ball quite a bit. Aaron Jones is going to be a big part of that. He's going to be a big part of the receiving game as well, because Jordan Love, his best plays this year have been throws behind the line of scrimmage, mostly to Aaron Jones in that week 1 game. So yeah, he has to be a big part of the offense for the Packers to succeed going forward, and it's going to happen. So I think people are worried. I mean, he has 14 carries this year. I think you can get him at solid RB2, low-end RB2 value, and I think he's a low-end RB1, high-end RB2 most weeks. We will do one more running back, then we'll go to a quarterback. Another running back I really like, and I'll answer, Ben, your question after this as well. I like Josh Jacobs. The Raiders aren't interested in letting anybody else run the football. We saw this last year when he had, I believe, over 400 total touches. It was just insane. So far this year, he has a little over 87% of the team's rushing attempts. He also has 5+ targets in each of the past 3 games. So he's getting used as a receiver, which, you know, if you told me that a few years ago, I wouldn't have believed you, but he is. He is the RB14 so far. That's not terrible, right? It's not like he's irrelevant, but he was the RB3 last year, I believe. And people are upset because he's more of an RB2 right now, sort of inconsistent. Obviously, he had that super dud where he had negative rushing yards. I think you can get him at maybe RB2 value right now. And he is an RB1 for me, and he has top 5 potential the rest of the way for me. And this is, by the way, like I said, heading into week 5, the timing is pretty relevant here. This is probably the last time you're going to get Josh Jacobs at this value. He has plays the Packers on Monday Night Football. Packers ranked 30th in rushing yards allowed per game, 155.3. You can run on the Packers, and the Raiders are certainly going to try to do that. The Packers are also, what's the best way to describe it? Unbelievably unaware of running backs as receivers out of the backfield. We'll call it that way. So I think the 5+ targets might be more this week. Like, I think he's going to be effective as a receiver as well. So I think a pretty good day is coming for Josh Jacobs. Again, I think I ranked him as RB3 for the week. And I'm looking to trade for him prior to that game, because afterwards, you're not going to get a good value on him anymore. Another buy low candidate at quarterback this time. We got Joe Burrow. This is an obvious buy low candidate. It's not a secret one. Everyone knows if you're looking to trade for Joe Burrow, you think he's going to improve, right? And it certainly seems like the only direction to go is up. That offensive line's bad. The way they're scheming offense up is bad. There's no 2 ways about it. Like, they could be doing so much better with the players they have. They're just not doing it. They need to, and a big part of it's because Joe Burrow can't fucking move. However, Joe Burrow is going to get better. He has to. He absolutely has to. And this is truly just a gut call by low, right? The schedule coming up is going to get better. Let me bring up his specific games here. So he has Arizona, Seattle, bye week, 49ers, Buffalo, which doesn't look that scary, Texans, Baltimore, Steelers, Jaguars, Colts, Vikings, Steelers, Chiefs. And for whatever it's worth, the Bengals have the Chiefs number in the regular season. So that stretch, the end of the season, is going to be very good. It's a stretch where the Bengals know they have to play well to even have a chance to make the playoffs at this point. And 2 easy games and then a bye week. I think Joe Burrow is going to get quite a bit better. I think he's a guy you can absolutely go trade for. And there isn't much left to do with that. I mean, the team who has Joe Burrow right now, they had to use a high draft pick for him, right? He was drafted relatively early. So there's a good chance that team's struggling. And if that team has a 2-2, 1-3, God forbid, 0-4 record with Joe Burrow, and they're like, I just can't take Joe Burrow at this point anymore, you might be able to get him for very cheap. You may be able to get him as your quarterback too. And at that point, if you can just sit and wait with Joe Burrow, he's going to be a great candidate to pick up. Absolutely. Let's jump to Kelvin Ridley then. I have 3 more buy low guys, and then I'll quickly talk about 7 sell high candidates for this week. Kelvin Ridley, buy low. He started his return with a bang. Week 1 against the Colts. Wide receiver 6, very good. Then he's been bad, and people are starting to freak out a little bit. I understand, but he's still top 30 for targets. He's seeing the ball. He has 4 drops, which has contributed to him being wide receiver 37. That's not going to continue. He's not going to average a drop a week. It's going to get better. But his matchups coming up are great. This week he plays Buffalo Bills. Buffalo obviously traveling to London, also have to adjust without Tre'Davious White being in the lineup now. So last week he faced a good corner in Atlanta or against Atlanta. This week he is against a Tre'Davious White-less Buffalo team. So I like him. Then he places the Colts again, who he destroyed in week 1. So I think Kelvin Ridley gets back on track. I think he's a good buy low candidate. Definitely trust it. Chris Olave is another buy low guy. His ADP was wide receiver 12. Obviously, on the show, we said we didn't like it, that he was getting overdrafted. Obviously, most people didn't listen, right? Not everybody listens to this show. Kind of crazy. So the people who drafted him as wide receiver 12 got to be pissed, right? They got to be freaking out. He's just not doing the job. He is wide receiver 27. That's not terrible. But if you drafted him as a wide receiver 1 or, just wide receiver 12 overall, you're angry. You may not have the best team. Your record may not be that good, and you may be very willing to sell. So I would love to get Chris Olave. 306 receiving yards. That's not that bad. Also, Alvin Kamara just came back. Alvin Kamara being back is going to improve the offense. I don't love Alvin Kamara as a fantasy player, but it does help the Saints offense. If the Saints are in scoring position more often, then Chris Olave is going to have a higher probability to score a touchdown. I believe 1 touchdown to his name so far this year. Yes, 1 touchdown. So his fantasy value is going to go up. Also, he has the 4th most air yards in the NFL this year, 536. Like last week, Derek Carr just kept missing them. So the potential is there. The opportunity is there. It's just a, Craigslist misconnection situation. Like the ship's passing in the night. The ball needs to get into Chris Olave's hands. The play is there to be made, and it's just not connecting. But at some point, it's going to connect. At some point, the play is going to be made, and Chris Olave is going to be great. The potential for him to be a wide receiver 1 is already there. Just make the play. Finish the play. And it's going to happen. And with some decent matchups coming up, you like that as well. Final buy low candidate. Then we'll jump back into the chat for some questions. Darren Waller. And again, like Darren Waller is frustrating the hell out of people. It's doom and gloom. I get it. However, there's the reason for most people are upset by it is because we've seen the Giants so much this year in primetime games. And the Giants have gotten their dick kicked in. They've been terrible. And Darren Waller has been terrible too. He's been open a few times and the ball just didn't go his way. A lot of other times he's disappearing. And he's disappearing because he's been asked to chip at the line of scrimmage every single time because their tackles are so goddamn terrible. However, when Saquon Barkley comes back, I don't think it's going to be this week, but there is a chance. Some people are expecting it this week. It's either this week or next week, I would say. But we've seen how much the presence of Saquon Barkley on the field for the Giants completely improves their offense. And if Saquon Barkley's back, the offense is improved and they can run the ball. They have some sort of respect from the defense in the running game. That pass rush is going to slow down. That's going to help the tackles out. Daniel Jones isn't going to be on his back immediately. Darren Waller won't have to chip at the beginning of his routes, and then he's going to be good, right? That improves his probability to make plays, to get fantasy points, yada, yada, yada. However, even if we just took the terrible Giants offense as it is right now, right now, Darren Waller is tight end 12. We're acting like he is terrible. Yet there's tight ends that are like tight end 25, like Dalton Kincaid. What is he, like tight end 25, tight end 30? And people are like, he's great. Like, I don't get it. He's tight end 12. Relax. Don't tell the Darren Waller owner this, but he's tight end 12. He's also 9th in targets amongst tight ends. Pretty good. So he is getting used. He is also 7th among air yards for tight ends. So he's getting targeted. The potential for yards is there. Again, just finish the play. Even in this terrible Giants offense as it stands right now, the potential is there for him to be a clear and obvious tight end one if the play just gets made. But I think the offense is going to improve. So if we're taking his value and even growing it, he's going to be great. I think you can absolutely buy Darren Waller right now. I think he's a great buy low candidate. Let's talk about 7 players you can sell high on right now for fantasy football. Let's start with an obvious one. We'll start with a couple obvious. Maybe we'll get a little controversial. Obvious one, Puka Nacua, right? We thought his value was at an all-time high after, I believe it was that week 2 game, right? We're like, okay, you don't want to trade him when he has 1 game left before Cooper Kupp. You want to do it with 2 so you can sell that 3rd game there, right? You want to sell that week 3 game included in the value. That's when his value was at an all-time high. I do believe we were correct with that. But now, Cooper Kupp might not play this week. He's eligible to come off IR, but he may not play, and that gives the Puka Nacua believers the hype train of Puka Nacua more life, more air, more reason to believe. So if they are not a Puka Nacua owner, but they want to be, this gives them optimism to trade for him. This gives them a reason like, oh, Cooper Kupp's not going to come back healthy. I knew it. I said it. They're going to do all that stuff. Feed into that hype. Trade him away. He's been wide receiver 4 so far this season. I get it. However, Cooper Kupp's going to come back at some point, and Puka's probably going to have a 5 to 8 target role, 5 to 7 target role every week, which isn't terrible, right? That's still fantasy relevant, but he's not going to be wide receiver 4, and I think you can sell him at pretty good value right now. I like him quite a bit. Also, like on top of Cooper Kupp coming back, like Matthew Stafford's already hurt. It's week 5 and he's hurt. He's going to play hurt, and he's going to be playing a little too long. He's going to get hurt worse, and then he's going to play a game and he's going to look terrible. And then he's going to play another game and he's going to look terrible because he's hurt and shouldn't be playing. And then he's going to get hit, or they're going to lose too many games, and then they'll sit him down. So you don't necessarily want to be starting Puka through that stretch either. So I think there's a ton of reasons to sell him right now, the biggest of which being that Cooper Kupp injury update. Just because Kupp may not come back for week 5, that doesn't mean he's not back for week 6 or 7, right? So that's why I'm doing that trade. Another one. Another wide receiver, Christian Watson, maybe a little bit controversial. I've seen a lot of people talk him up as a buy low candidate. Again, Packers Insider, hi, let me talk to you about Christian Watson. Christian Watson's not the most talented receiver on the Packers roster. He's not the most skilled wide receiver. That's Romeo Doubs. We've said that for a long time. I've said that for a long time. It's true. Christian Watson has the God-given abilities of speed and size, athleticism. When he's not 100% healthy, I mean, he's a Lamborghini, right? Like, he needs to be fully ready. The conditions need to be perfect for him to go to be great. So if he gets another little hamstring tweak, he's going to be out again. But on top of that, Romeo Doubs is more skilled. They can use Romeo Doubs in more ways. He also has the rapport with Jordan Love, yada, yada, yada. Christian Watson came back last week on a snap count, and he scored a touchdown. So many people are freaking out about that touchdown. They're thinking about that long stretch last season where he kept getting touchdown. And people fed into that hype last year. He comes back, scores a touchdown, and people are feeding into the hype again. If you have somebody in your league feeding into that hype and thinks he's going to be a wide receiver 1, even a wide receiver 2 consistently, trade his ass. There's going to be long stretches this year where Christian Watson fully disappears, because that's the type of player he is. If he sees top coverage, if he sees any safety rolling over the top, like, he's just not going to be overly valuable if he doesn't score a touchdown. So if there's people really riding that hype train off last week's touchdown, trade Christian Watson. Let's talk about another player who just came back last week, and we are going to trade them off of that big performance. Talking Alvin Kamara. I understand. If you're an Alvin Kamara owner, you had to wait 3 weeks of suspensions. You had to wait out 3 weeks, and then you finally got to play him last week, and he was great. He was great because he had, 13 receptions? Yeah, he had 13 catches, and he was still running back 9 in PPR. And that's because he didn't score a touchdown. Let me tell you, he's not going to score touchdowns this year. I said it a little bit ago in the show. If you set Alvin Kamara's touchdowns at 5.5 rest of the season, I'll take the under. If you set it at 4.5, I might take the under. He's just not great in the red zone. Like, he's not a strong runner. He's not a good short yardage runner. He's not a good red zone runner. We already knew that, and the Saints knew that. That's why they traded for signed Jamal Williams in the offseason, most rushing touchdowns last year. So when everyone's healthy, 1, Jamal Williams, probably best red zone rusher. 2, Taysom Hill, next best red zone rusher. Then Alvin Kamara is the 3rd best red zone rusher. But is he the 3rd best red zone weapon on the Saints? No. They also got Jawan Johnson. That's where he thrives. They got a package solely for Jimmy Graham down there. Jimmy Graham is only on the team to play red zone. So he's going to be a receiving target down there. So Alvin Kamara may be the 3rd or 4th or 5th option in the red zone. He's just not going to score touchdowns. He's not going to catch 13 catches per game, 13 receptions per game. So he's a flex. Like, truth be told, I think Alvin Kamara is a flex rest of season. That's not terrible, right? Like, it's a guy who just came back. All of a sudden, he's a solid flex for you in PPR scoring. Sure. But I think you can sell Alvin Kamara at RB2 value. And if you can sell him at RB2 value, then do it. Because like I said, he's a flex. He's running back 30 rest of year, something like that. So trade away Alvin Kamara. Not a must sell for any of these people I'm talking about. Almost none of them are must sells. None of them I've said so far are must sells, but they are sell high. Now, I have one more, and then we'll get into the must sells maybe. This is someone I said is a sell high candidate when I talked about him in the preseason, in training camp, before we even seen him on the field. I said, this guy is going to be my favorite sell high candidate of the year. Everything I said, everything predicted has come to fruition. The stars are aligning, and I'm telling you, this guy is a sell high candidate. It's not an easy sell high candidate because I'm talking about Sam Laporta. Now, Sam Laporta is great. I am not downgrading his value. I'm not downgrading his role or his talent. Sam Laporta is a great player. He's going to be a great player in the NFL for a long time. However, at a position of scarcity in the sad, sad world that is fantasy football tight ends, you have someone who's valuable, someone who's playing pretty well right now. And when I say pretty well, I'm saying he's tight end 2 for the season. Tight end 2. He's never going to be tight end 2 again, except for this moment right now. We're going to see Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, people like that coming alive, right? So Sam Laporta, tight end 2, you can sell that. You can sell that. On top of that, the rookie wall is a real thing, especially for a tight end who's playing 2 positions, essentially. He played very physical football in Iowa. A lot of run blocking, a lot of passing. He saw all of the targets at Iowa, essentially. They had no offense except for him. Took a lot of hits. Immediately following their lackluster season, because they're Iowa, then he has to train for the draft. So he goes through the draft process, training for the draft. That's exhausting. Then he signs with the Lions. Immediately gets put into a big role for the Lions, playing physical Lions football, blocking, getting hit all the time, a lot of stuff. That rookie wall is going to hit eventually. It catches up to everybody. It's going to hit him. He's played a lot of really good but really physical football over the past calendar year with really no break, and I think he's going to hit the wall. Do I think the wall's going to hit this week? No. That's why I like selling him right now. I think he has good football ahead of him, and you can sell that. And he's tight end 2, but after a month, maybe even 2 months, that rookie wall is going to hit. Also, the end of their season, the last month, maybe month and a half of their season, not the easiest for tight ends. So I do think Sam Laporta is a sell high, not a must sell. Again, he's not a must sell, but I do think you can sell high on Sam Laporta's value right now, especially because there's a lot of teams out there who have tight ends that are terrible. They're just trying to find anything at tight end. So, you float Sam Laporta out there, and I think people will overpay for something like that. Let's wrap up these sell high candidates. with the Miami backfield. I wrote down Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane. I haven't written this part of the article yet, but truly, man, going into last week, the zero RB truthers were talking so much shit because Raheem Mostert was a lock running back one. He was so good, obvious running back one play. And then he was terrible. And Achane was great. And now Achane's an obvious running back one play. And now they add Jeff Wilson. And then you add the fact that their offensive line's getting hurt worse. And their home field competitive advantage of the hot, humid Miami is going down as well. Obviously, Miami's competitive advantage is early season, not late season. So I don't love this. Like, you're never going to feel good starting a Miami running back unless they're hurt again. And it trims the competition because it's going to be a three-headed committee at best for you. It might get more. They may add somebody else too. It wouldn't surprise me if they added Leonard Fournette there. So they have 4 players to worry about. Like, I don't want a Miami running back, but if people are valuing Raheem Mostert or Devon Achane as a running back 1, a mid to high end running back 2, take it. Take whatever trade you can get. Like, I just don't want to play that game. I don't think you're going to predict the right running back correctly more often than you are incorrect. That's the issue. Neither of them are reliable RB2s. So if you can sell them as an RB2, go ahead and do it. And then we'll wrap up with Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford, quite the controversial figure with Fantasy Football by Committee. Quite the controversial figure on this Flurry Sports YouTube channel. Because I said you will regret picking up Jerome Ford. I said he's a bad football player. I said I think the Browns are going to work out Kareem Hunt and sign Kareem Hunt. And the take, which kind of took off on a couple other platforms, which is kind of interesting. I said I would rather spend 2% of my fab on Kareem Hunt. This was before he was a Brown. I said I'd rather spend 2% on Kareem Hunt than 50+% on Jerome Ford. And people called me an idiot. And then Jerome Ford looked bad, but he fell into the end zone a couple times, so his fantasy day was saved. And then last week, he didn't do anything. Jerome Ford's not that good of a football player. Kareem Hunt's role is going to grow. Pierre Strong's role is going to grow. I think Jerome Ford's the 3rd most talented running back in the backfield who's healthy. Obviously, Nick Chubb's better once he's healthy. If you can trade Jerome Ford as anything of a flex or above at this current moment, if you can trade him at flex value, RB3 value, RB2 value, do it. Take it. Get what you can get. He is on bye this week, so it's tough to trade a player who's on bye because the person who trades for him can't use them. But if you can trade to an RB needy team, absolutely do it. If you can get a wide receiver 3 for Jerome Ford, do it. If you can get a low-end tight end 1 for Jerome Ford, do it. He's not going to be reliable if he doesn't score a touchdown. He's not going to be that reliable. He's not a great runner. He's a terrible pass protector, so he's going to come off the field for that. Yeah, you just do not need Jerome Ford on your fantasy team. Maybe people are realizing I was right. I don't know. You don't need to admit it. I would appreciate less death threats and comments like that for just saying a fantasy take that's correct. But Jerome Ford's not great. And you should sell high while you still can.